Hello, everybody. This is Marty from Dawgs Blog with tonight's podcast of the Frank Carson et al. Trial on January 24th, 2019. The jury was up around 1:38 this afternoon. Judge was on the bench right about the same time, so we didn't do too bad this afternoon. Percy Martinez was continuing cross of Robert Woody, and he talked about the transcripts that he acquired or was given prior to the preliminary hearing, and he used those transcripts and some of the police reports or whatever was involved in that. He said it was about a 6-inch stack that he used to prepare for his testimony. They also went into when he had he testified that he took and he burned the pickup. It was he asked him, Percy Martinez asked him what kind of pickup that Bobby Atwell had, and he said it was a silver Chevy 4-door pickup. And he said that very quick. He didn't have to recall or refresh or anything on that one. He said he knew exactly what type of truck it was. But he did testify in the preliminary hearing that it was a white Ford pickup, and actually Percy had used the testimony to impeach him, and Baljeet had let him use a truck to take products back and forth between the stores, to take some stock back in stores and back and forth and stuff like that. And he said it was a white Ford pickup that he had used to do that, and that's what he had burned. That's what he said in the preliminary hearing, and that was in September of 2016. He was asked if Baljeet Atwell had more than one pickup. He said no, and he was asked if that's the pickup that he had put on fire, and he said that is correct. Percy Martinez asked him if anybody had asked him to lie against Frank Carson or anybody else. And Woody said that he had the investigators were telling him things that they wanted him to say because they already knew. They already knew what they knew, and they wanted him to repeat what they were saying. So basically, they were wanting him to lie. And that interview, by the way, I did personally see a large part of that interview with Dombey and Jacobson, and they sat there and told him what they knew for a long period of time, and didn't ask him anything that he knew. During the prelim, he was asked if in September 2016, if he had told any lies during that time to get his deal that he had been looking for. He didn't say anything, he said, to get a better deal. Percy Martinez took some transcript from the preliminary hearing to impeach him, and saying, and there was a lot of objections during this period. Marlissa was doing a lot of objections. He said during the preliminary hearing, he said he would get a better deal if he said the things that he wanted him to say. And Beverly Woody had held the paper up to the window at the jail to say some things to get out of jail faster. He had been questioned about about the Corey Kaufman missing person case. They had told him, I believe it was Kurt Bunch that told him, it was Dombey that told him that they had his cell phone records that placed him on the Frank Carson property. Remember, they cannot do that. They can do it real time if it's an AT&T, and this is in 2012. So If it was Cricket or some of the smaller Metro PCS in 2012, they did not have that capability. Real time, they can track like a missing skier and things like that if the phone is on. Through records, historical records, they cannot. There's no GPS information where they can say precisely where a phone was. They can only say the tower and the sector that it was in, which can cover a large area. So again, he did refresh his memory on that one, and it does say that he was told that they had placed him a cell phone, and I believe also he said he didn't have a cell phone at that time, so it had to be like Robin Attenhofer's cell phone or something they were talking about. But they're placing him a cell phone on the property when he didn't actually have a cell phone of his own. Robert Woody had said he had told investigators they wanted him to say things that he could not produce. He had a refresh for that. Also, in that 3-1 March 1st of 2014 interview, that's from February 28th to March 1st. It's when he was first taken into custody. He said he grabbed a shirt of the Outlaws, of both of them, and tried to pull them away to put a stop to the fight, saying they've had enough. And he had a refresh on that. He didn't recall. He doesn't remember anything about any of this stuff. My guess is, my personal opinion is, because it never happened. He was told what to say. That's just my personal opinion. He just doesn't know anything. But they have all this information and the story that he put out. And he repeated, he did tell the investigators that he tried to stop the fight by stepping in. And Steve Jacobson also told him on 8/14 of 2015, his story needs to be that that's what he did. He tried to stop the fight, and he didn't have anything to do with the actual homicide. And he needs to tell what happened if he wants to stay out of trouble on this thing. But he kept saying at the time he didn't know if Frank Carson or the Outlaws were involved in this. And this is on August 14th of 2015. He's still saying that. He told Jacobson that he would be spilling his guts about all this stuff if he had any information, and he had also refreshed from the preliminary hearing on what he said about that also. He said he should not be prosecuted and should not be there at all, should not be involved in this at all, because, and he said, yeah, that's what he said, because he didn't do anything. He said that Jacobson was telling him that the Outlaws were telling him to keep their mouths shut, and they will help him. But if he talks, he will end up like Corey Coffin. This is what Jacobson was telling Woody. He's going to end up like Corey Coffin. But they're trying to act like the good guys, and they're going to protect him. And he did a refresh on that one too, because he didn't really recall, but that's what he said. And that's what was said in the preliminary hearing. In respect to the comments on March 1st of 2014, he told his lawyer, he said some of the things he said because that's what the investigators wanted to hear. Again, he did not recall that, but he was asked if that's what he said. There again, refresh with a preliminary hearing transcript. And that's what he said. This is what they wanted him to say. Steve Jacobson kept repeating that the Outlaws would kill him if he were to say anything. They want to hurt him. They want to do things to him, and they were willing to protect him. That's why they've transferred him to Tuolumne County as part of the illusion. And he kept telling Steve Jacobson, I shouldn't be here at all. I shouldn't be prosecuted at all. He shouldn't be at that table, in that interview room talking about this. And again, he had to refresh on all this stuff, but he's saying everything he read, he says it did refresh, and he says, yes, correct. That's what I said. He would say everything is correct. He was only there because of their false fucking lies, is what he said to Steve Jacobson. Dombey and Jacobson talked about making the threats on South Johnson Street to Corey Kaufman. He doesn't remember going to Johnson Street or making those threats. He was fairly familiar with the street because he had taken Scott McFarland home after he had been drinking at the store, and McFarland's house was right next to where Corey Kaufman and at the Pickett household. And Corey Kaufman, they told him, was not actually at his house. He was at a neighbor's house. They were cutting a tree stump up or something like that. He kept telling the investigators that he was fuzzy on the threats on Johnson. He didn't know what Corey Kaufman looked like. The threats were near Scott McFarland's house. But again, he said it was a little fuzzy, and they're pushing him to it as he didn't remember. At this point, Judge Aniga called a break. She said she had to go take an aspirin or something. She has a headache or whatever it is. And so we took a break. We come back. About 25 minutes later, jury's back up, and Robert Woody's back on the stand. Again, they were talking about the investigators and the threats on Corey Kaufman on Johnson. And again, they were talking about how they were pushing him to say what they wanted to say. He did not remember anything about any threats made. This was during the 8/14 of 2015 interview. Steve Jacobson said the neighbors saw the threats to Corey Kaufman, and they were in a black BMW. Again, he did not recall. Reading the transcript, yes, that's what Jacobson did say that. It was Scott's neighbor and knew where he lived. Robert Woody said that he didn't know about the threats until they told him what the neighbor said, in addition to what Kim Stout had said. Kurt Bunch had also said that someone had told him that someone had saw the threats to Corey Kaufman. Dombey asked if was Scott McFarland happy about the threats, and he said he didn't talk to McFarland about the threats, but there was some general talk at the store about the thefts going on by Corey Kaufman and others, apparently. But he thought they were talking about some other people too, like Michael Cooley, not necessarily just Corey Kaufman. They're also talking about that the stop that he made at Cooley's house, and talked to Michael Cooley and made the threats there. Again, this went on. That interview had gone on for some time, and he continually said, I don't know anything about all this, but they were trying to jam it down his throat, and eventually he just kind of got submissive with the thing and said, yeah, okay, that type of answers. Again, he told the investigators he doesn't remember the threats to Corey Kaufman or the Johnson Street visit. When they talked about the threats, And then when they got back from the house, he thought they were talking about the visit to Lander, Michael Cooley's house. And Steve Jacobson told him, no, we're talking about the Johnson. And Woody said, no, I'm talking about Lander. So he still didn't remember, even though they kept telling him. He had to be refreshed on some of this, but so he kept saying Lander, and the investigators wanted him to testify about Johnson or make a statement about Johnson. He said Robert Woody said he didn't make a threat to Corey Kaufman in that interview. Again, the investigators told him about the neighbor that said that they saw Robert Woody and an Indian guy. And the witness also flip-flopped on which brother it was, so it really wasn't too sure, apparently, which brother it was. Dombey said it was Daljeet's car that was used on Johnson Street. And Steve Jacobson says it was Daljeet's car, and he was the Indian guy in the car. And apparently there was some confusion initially about who made the threats about your ass is grass. And, so they were trying to get Woody to cop out to it. Robert Woody said he never had an issue with Corey Kaufman, or he said the guy. And Robert Woody said he never made the threats to him. Again, he's reading the transcripts of the interview. The investigators kept saying it was Daljeet Atwell's car. Robert Woody said, I guess. And finally he started getting submissive and just said, okay, I guess. And said his ass is grass. He said, okay, I guess I did that. And Steve Jacobson told him he doesn't want him to guess. He wants to hear. And he wants to hear the exact words that he said. And he said, give him a ballpark figure of what exactly he said. That's what the words that Jacobson used. And Robert Woody again said, I have no idea. This is in the interview on 8/14 of 2015. Woody said that's possibly some type of thing he may have said, just used a term that ass is grass. That goes back to an old saying, your ass is grass and I'm the lawnmower type of thing. And Dombey had asked him if he had ever said that before. And Robert Woody's response was, well, who hasn't? That's a common term. So he told Dombey, yeah, I could have possibly said it. That's something that's said by a lot of people. Robert Woody kept saying, I don't know what to tell you. You guys are trying to push me into something that I don't want to say. I don't know what to tell you. Again, he keeps repeating that. I don't know what to tell you. Percy Martinez asked him, today, as you sit here today, do you have any knowledge or remembering of what was said on Johnson Street or during that interview? And he says he doesn't believe that he said that. He doesn't believe he was there on Johnson Street. Steve Jacobson asked who else was on the front with Corey Kaufman. Judge, there was something that caught the judge's attention. She called a sidebar. I think she just wanted to, maybe she just wanted to end it for the day. I don't think she was feeling good. And because she said she had to go take an aspirin or something. The jury was sent out at 3:58. It was almost 4 o'clock anyway. And we're back at 9:30 tomorrow. So that's where we're at today. Is pretty much the same thing. Percy Martinez should be done probably tomorrow morning. I don't think he has a lot left from what it sounds like. It's slow going because Robert Woody has to read the transcripts on everything because he doesn't recall. The judge has to find the transcript, the section that they're talking about. She has to read it first before Robert Woody, and then Marlissa's objecting to every other question. And she even got chastised earlier to the way she objected. You know, she said something to the effect that is completely not what misstates the evidence. That completely misstates the evidence or something to that effect. And then the judge read what they were referring to in the transcript, and the judge says it says exactly what they're talking about. It doesn't completely misstate the evidence. And she also struck Marlissa Ferreras' comments the way she made that objection in front of the jury and told the jury to disregard the comment that she had made. So that's where we're at. Back tomorrow at 9:30, and don't forget I have the PayPal button at the bottom of each report. Donate a little bit. Again, just trying to pay the bills. I don't care about making money on any of this. I'm just trying to pay some bills and get things done and keep this going. Don't forget my sponsor, Merced Tile Supply. Talk to them if you're for your tile needs, and they have all the supplies for installing the tile and all the extras that you need. And they have a good array of stuff down there for whatever you need. So talk to him. There's a video on my site in regards to that, and there's a link there. You can click to go to his site and look him up. So that's all I got. Like I said, like I always say, don't take my word for it. Come to court and find out for yourself. Good night, everybody.